joining me right now. Good morning and welcome. Delighted to have you with us.
Good morning, and as usual, greetings to the Polish people across the world.
So let's start with this recent cabinet reshuffle, right? I mean, Rustem Umerov replaced by former Prime Minister Denis Shmyhal as Defense Minister, and Umerov will serve as the head of this National Defense and Security Council. What is this entity? What is its significance and the significance of this move?
So the significance of the move is to put the best people into the best spots. The former prime minister is an incredible manager, a man who understands how to keep the government moving. And currently, the Ministry of Defense is an integral part of Ukraine's entire perspective, both internally and externally. Regarding Mr. Umerov, his movement into the chairman role of the National Security and Defense Council plays into his strengths. He's an analyst. He's a man who understands negotiations. And in this particular case, Mr. Umerov is now chairman of what we could maybe consider the overarching intelligence body of Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. I mean, but what changes in the Department of Defense is Zelensky counting on?
You know, the streamlining of different procurement procedures, the understanding that if you had what was known previously as the Ministry of Strategic Industries, which had some overlapping areas of interest with the Ministry of Defense, they've now been merged into one. We're going to see quicker abilities, quicker reactions, especially when it comes to weapons production under the Ministry of Defense and procurement from our partners, including ultimately the United States.
Mm-hmm. So let's hope it will work out to the best. And Ukraine will apparently let foreign arms companies test out their latest weapons on the front lines, right? There is this state-backed arms investment group, Brave One. I mean, they announced this. So how is this going to work?
Brave One was the formulation of our newest Deputy Prime Minister Fedorov, when he was at the Ministry of Technology and Advancement. And so, digital transformation, I guess would be the proper term, Ministry of Digital Transformation. Brave One is a clearinghouse for the top tech that's coming through Ukraine. And our partners have oftentimes wanted access to this technology to understand better how Ukraine's been able to innovate so quickly. And now with it all going through the Brave One portal and being taken to the front, including the technology from foreign countries, there will be a better on-the-ground understanding of just what capacities these new technologies and weapon systems have.
Right, but I mean, is it a pilot program? I mean, what is the scale of this?
No, there's thousands upon thousands of different weapon systems that have already been put into Brave One. The pilot program is an expansion of something that already existed when it comes to the foreign arms. A lot of times it was a bottom-up process. If you were a foreign arms manufacturer, you would get technology into the hands of different companies or battalions or brigades, see how it would work, and then it would be pushed up to the top. The Ukrainian government at the highest levels understood that there was a desire to see foreign technology, and now it's being rolled into the already existing Brave One interface.
Mm-hmm, of course. And of course, training is important. And President Volodymyr Zelensky said that France has recently agreed to train Ukrainian pilots on Mirage fighter jets. How significant is this?
Oftentimes, you would hear so much about our land forces, but the Ukrainian Air Force has done more with less than just about any group, whether it's the air defense or it's our brave heroes in the skies. And so now, with all the talk that has taken place with the F-16s and the Mirages, where we'll be getting the next generation of fighter pilots caught up and training on this European system of jet, which is clearly going to play a role in Ukraine in the coming years, whether it comes after victory with you against Russia, but in the defensive posture for the next decade or two.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's take a closer look at the front lines, right? Could you tell us what have been some of the key developments over the last week or so?
Of course. One thing we're seeing is a bogging down in the Sumy region of the Russian so-called advances there. They're running over and over and over again into this morass of Ukrainian defense. So they think they're getting somewhere, and then we snuff them out. They just recently were making claims about Shahs of Yar, that they had reached the center of Shahs of Yar. They had given Shahs of Yar a date of May 2024 of being able to take the entire city. So now, 14 months after when they had planned to take the entire city of Shahs of Yar, they're only now making very dubious claims as to having reached the center of the city. So again, we're seeing grave Russian losses against a near impenetrable Ukrainian defensive system led by both our ground forces and our drone teams.
And speaking of defense systems, Patriots, some are now apparently on the way to Ukraine, at least 3 such systems, right? I mean, 2 thanks to Germany and 1 thanks to Norway. What is the time frame on the delivery of this?
One thing that's important is that we never want to ever telegraph to the enemy when certain systems are coming up. We know they're trying to understand what's happening in Poland at the different depots in Moldova, at the different depots. We're aware of what Russia's up to. So without getting into specifics, what I will say is we're just grateful that all of our partners are finally understanding the need for our air defense systems and that they're on the way. But I will warn the Polish people, as the Polish government knows, and the Moldovans, et cetera, the Russians are looking at everything all the time, and operational security has to be more key now than ever.
And of course, I must ask you about the changing U.S. stance on the war in Ukraine, right? I mean, do you think this is a lasting shift in attitude?
I do. As we talked about on your show before, I was one of those who had a belief that President Trump would ultimately understand that President Putin, dictator Putin, was a genocidal maniac. We now see that the United States has come around, and we've seen an incredible deal between Europe and the United States on behalf of Ukraine. I do believe it's going to be lasting, because when President Trump realized that Putin was nothing but a liar who was trying to punk him, for lack of a better term, the president wasn't going to deal with that. And so now Ukraine is going to see the full might of the United States being put back at their disposal. It's not just the Patriots, but we're going to see some very interesting weapon systems, I'm sure, coming in the near future.
And I know that you've just said it's top secret, but I mean, in the past, we've often discussed delays, right, in deliveries of military aid. Much was pledged, less was delivered. And I was wondering, has this improved? I mean, can you tell us?
Compared to what was happening just a few months ago, where there was these strange messages coming from the United States regarding intelligence sharing and regarding this delay a few weeks ago in the weapons that President Trump was not aware of, Minister Hegseth went ahead and made that decision himself. Once President Trump realized it, I think it's safe to say that the weapons are now flowing in. And a very important vote took place last night in the U.S. Congress. By nearly 350 to 70, there was a vote in the House of Representatives led by Speaker Johnson to continue funding weapons for Ukraine and to continue to make sure the weapons flowed into Ukraine. So MAGA now is fully behind Ukraine's plans for victory against the Russian enemy.
Right, so things are looking up. But let's switch to Germany, perhaps, because, I mean, still no Taurus missiles for Ukraine at this point. And I was wondering if you could perhaps explain to us from a technical point of view why there is such a discrepancy in approaches. I mean, like, for instance, the UK had no issue providing Storm Shadow missiles, right? But there's this issue with Taurus. Is it because of the range? I mean, why is that?
If you understand what the German chancellor said, and when I say you, meaning the general population, he stated clearly that they would not announce when weapon systems arrived. They were no longer going to state what they were shipping or when. I still have a strong belief that the Taurus will be deployed on the battlefield, especially once the U.S. Weapon systems start coming in as well. So many countries look to the United States as this beacon of freedom. And once the floodgates open from the U.S., that seems that will take place. No doubt other countries such as Germany will gladly follow in that pathway. Not every country is like Poland taking the lead in this fight against Russia.
Absolutely. But recently, this news surfaced that Ukraine's military is to receive the first batch of several hundred domestically produced long-range missiles. And apparently they're funded by Germany, and they're capable of striking targets over 2,000 kilometers. So do you see it as a viable alternative to foreign weapons?
I think the combination of Ukrainian self-produced weaponry with foreign weapons in conjunction with these partnerships, be it with the United Kingdom, Poland, Germany, et cetera, is what's needed across the board. Almost no country uses only their own self-produced weapons. That said, these new batches of long-range weapons that we're producing right here in Ukraine on behalf of the Ukrainian Defense Forces will go a long way in showing that Ukraine is a country that's not a welfare country, but a country that's leading the way in defense manufacturing and one that is an equal partner. And we're able to do this thanks to the funding and financing of our partners, but through the understanding of Ukrainian technological expertise and the ability to understand what's needed on the battlefield.
Well, apparently, I mean, in its latest attacks on Ukraine, Russia has been increasingly relying on drones. I'm not sure if you agree with this, but I mean, and now they have also reached Western Ukraine. So, of course, we can see this shift, right? I mean, this change in approach. Why is that?
Well, because drones are cheap to produce and Russia likes to commit terrorism. So while there's been a lot of talk on the front lines about them still continuing their assaults, which is happening, what we're seeing more in the news about is the Russian terrorism against Ukrainian civilian populations. So when they're hitting Western cities that are familiar to the Polish folks in your neighboring areas, such as Ivano-Frankivsk, as in Lviv, et cetera, as in Rivne, what we know is that Russia is simply attempting what they call critical infrastructures, many times civilian apartment buildings. And they do it in an attempt to cheaply overwhelm Ukrainians' air defense systems. But the Ukrainian people are resilient. So Russia is on war economy footing, churning out these Iranian-designed, Russian-made, Belarusian-made, in some cases of the components, these Shaheds, and they're sending them at us. Ultimately, though, it's failed to break the spirit of the Ukrainian people. And in any way to look at it, it's almost backfired on the Russians, because it's one of the reasons that First Lady Melania Trump turned to her husband and said, Ukraine just got bombed again, because you can't claim to want peace and carry out terror attacks against civilian populations in places like Ivano-Frankivsk, Ternopil, or Lviv.
Absolutely. And my last quite technical question, but I'll ask you for a short answer. So about a week ago or so, the Ukrainian Air Force has released footage of this German-made Skynex defense system, and it's used against drones. And I was wondering, do you think this could be a powerful alternative to some other systems like Patriots even?
Sure. You're not going to be using, for the most part, Patriot systems against these Shahed. So when we have these early warning systems and these interceptor drones and these new technologies that almost come together as, to use the term from the SVU, a spider web, right? It comes together and it catches these drone systems. Yes, it will play a key part, along with, as President Zelensky's talked about, the new domestically produced interceptor drones and some of the sound-based air defense systems that give us early warning notification as well. It's a layered defense, and a layered defense that will be even more effective in the future as other tools come in. This is why we're shooting down 80 to 90% of the drones on some nights.
Ashton-Cirillo,